Hi there, in this video I want to talk to you about my newest novel, The Call of the Silver Cockatoo. It's just come out and I'm very excited to share it with my Reiki community because I know that the themes and ideas in this book will really resonate. Now in this video what I want to do is answer some questions that people ask about the book to give you a better idea of the themes and the ideas and the reasons behind writing it and why it hopefully will be something that really resonates with you. So the first question that people often ask is, what inspired me to write this book? What inspires me to write? And normally it's one of either two things. It's either I've got some kind of a cool idea I'd like to explore, or it's a theme I'd like to look into. So in my novel, The Slob's Guide, you can see it there behind me, in a sense it was a kind of a cool idea. It was like, well, what happens if we take one of the world's greatest slobs, a guy who's just created a whole philosophy of slobism, and we got an Indian guru to give him a kind of a magical ability or siddhi to be able to ride without getting tired, so what they call riding tempo. And then what would happen if this person who could then ride tempo without just on and on without getting tired, then got picked up by a pro cycling team? What would happen there? And so you've got kind of a whole hilarious sequence of events that results because of that thing. But I started with the idea. Another book which I'm planning to write has two teenagers, and they bump into this kind of alien artifact which actually switches their minds. So you've got the guy ends up in the girl's body, his mind's in the girl's body, and the girl's body ends up in the guy's body. And then they also have a telepathic connection, and it's all the ramifications of that. So that's another idea. But with The Call of the Silver Cockatoo here, it was really more theme-based. So I started off with what I might call a seed idea. So it's like the first idea for the book, and it was really wanting to look at how so many people have all these dreams and aspirations when they're young. We're really passionate about things. We really want to do certain things, maybe very creative things that would be very true to ourselves. But then as we get a little bit older, kind of the practicalities of daily life kind of consume us, and we end up, getting stuck doing things which are far less inspiring. So in Call of the Silver Cockatoo, what you might call the inciting incident, the event that kind of triggers all the rest of the events in the novel, is where the main character on a family holiday with his wife and two kids bumps into an ex kind of teenage flame of his. And what happens there is it reminds him of who he was, and as a result he realizes that, somewhat shockingly, he's become the very person he always swore he'd never become. He's become the very person he always kind of railed against. And having kind of understood that, then that makes it impossible for him to settle back into his old style of life. And as a result, there's a whole chain reaction of events that occur because of that. And so it was kind of like, that was like the key idea, and that triggered all of the rest of the ideas in the book. So who then is this novel for? Well, really, it's for anyone who likes a book with deeper themes. So, there are many books which are kind of fun, kind of pulp fiction, which you read them, they're enjoyable, kind of like, say, the Da Vinci Code. Although that one arguably actually had a little bit more to it, but, that kind of book. But I'm more interested in this book, I was more interested in writing one which really had deeper themes. So if you kind of like maybe the works of Paulo Coelho, like The Alchemist, or even just sort of spiritual literature, like, The Power of Now, that kind of thing, then this is a book that will resonate for you, because it's, as I said, it's analyzing deeper themes, and it's really revolves around this concept of, how do we live a meaningful life? How do we live an authentic life in a world where we have social pressures and so many social obligations, like family obligations? Many of us need to earn a living to support ourselves, to support our families. So we can't just go off to some mountaintop cabin, or we can't go off to live in a monastery and just meditate all day. There are practical considerations, and in everyday life, it's so easy for us to kind of lose touch with those deeper aspects of who we are. And so the book in many ways is about, well, how do we find our true self even while navigating everyday life? We've got a lot of other themes too. A key theme in the book is also relationships. You know, relationships, you've often got these kind of two opposing forces. On the one hand, you've got a yearning to connect to other people, you know, maybe yearning to connect to a loved one, but then you've got this other desire for freedom. And so it's like sometimes the more we seem to connect here, the less free we become. And sometimes it feels as though we're being kind of held back from becoming the person we really want to become, from doing the things we really want to do. And it can become a challenge. But then sometimes if we've got all the freedom we want, but we're kind of meditating in the desert by ourselves, then we get kind of drawn back to that connection with people. And so it's like, how do we navigate the different forces? How can we perhaps be in a relationship and yet still find freedom within that? How can we still be true to ourselves in a relationship? So that's one of the themes the book explores. Another one is just a kind of a Zen thing. You know, how can we really just get the most out of the moment? How can we find the passion and the enthusiasm in the moment for what we're doing? And you know, that could be if we're doing our regular work, or if we're out and about, you know, pursuing other disciplines. It could be our meditation or whatever it might be. Another key theme in this book is creativity. And, you know, so many of us feel a little bit creatively stifled in life. And it's no wonder, because there's so many social kind of pressures and forces pushing us to do things in a certain way. You know, even as an artist, it's quite difficult because, you know, like a writer often thinks, well, what should I write? You know, maybe you've got certain things you want to write about, but you think, well, there isn't really a market for those. And so do you kind of pander to the masses, or do you stay, you know, true to the themes you really want to discuss? And, you know, often you've got to find that kind of balance. And, you know, just to be creative is very difficult in a world where we're being bombarded all the time with external ideas and influences. You know, even if you think on a very deep language, just the language we use to think in our head comes from outside of us. So it's kind of like an operating system that's been kind of imposed on us. And that, in a way, often keeps us trapped thinking in certain ways. They've discovered that, you know, people who think in a different language will have different thoughts, because the actual language itself influences the way they think. And so, you know, how can we be in society? How can we be kind of use an operating system of language, etc., and yet still find true creativity? And so that's another theme the book explores. Now, another question sometimes people ask is, well, why the name? Well, it's called The Call of the Silver Cockatoo. So what's the relevance of that? So in a sense, it's twofold. One, in the book, there's this sort of mythical bird, the silver cockatoo. And unlike normal birds, unlike normal cockatoos, it doesn't always just fly with the group. You know, it will go off doing its own thing, being kind of always free to express itself. So this is the silver cockatoo. But the name, as you might have also already guessed, also has a kind of resonance with Jack London's The Call of the Wild. And that's the story of this domesticated dog that goes back into nature and kind of finds its kind of wolf nature, but its true inner nature, which it had lost in the city as this domesticated dog. And in many ways, that's kind of who we are. We get domesticated as human beings, and we lose that part that's really true to us. So how do we go about finding that? How do we go back to our inner essence? And that is one of the key themes of Call of the Silver Cockatoo. Another question that people sometimes ask then is, they say, well, look, if this is a theme-based novel, why don't you just write a non-fiction work? Why don't you just write a philosophical book where you can just very directly, you know, discuss all the themes and ideas? And look, I write lots of non-fiction and I like that, but there's something special about a novel, because unlike philosophy, a novel tends to be a little bit more grey, a little bit more open-ended. It doesn't necessarily say, look, this is the way you need to live. It kind of throws up ideas, and then it's up to the reader to form his or her own kind of, you know, decisions based on that. So they will just, you know, come to their own understanding rather than just being told what to believe. And for me, that's a lot more powerful. Obviously, if someone tells you something, you're typically going to go, yeah. But if you actually come to a certain realization, then that could potentially change your life. The other thing too is that we tend not to actually change, the way we act. We don't change ourselves due to having some intellectual understanding. When we change is when we're kind of emotionally propelled to do so. We feel an emotion and that motivates us then to change. And so the powerful thing about a novel is, yes, it can give you kind of these ideas, these burning ideas, but it's also fueled with emotion. So you couple the emotion with the ideas and boom, you've got a very combustible fuel that drives change. And so hopefully, the medium of the novel here can be more powerful in affecting change than it could be if I just wrote a philosophical treatise on the ideas discussed in The Call of the Silver Cockatoo. So that's why I really like the medium of a novel. Now, finally then, look, this is a book that I really believe you will resonate with. I believe that it will, it could be a book you read and go, wow, I actually feel changed. You go and live a different life having read the book. You feel inspired, to be truer to your authentic self having read this book. And so I really want to share it. And so what I've done is I've currently got a kind of a special on Amazon. And for the Kindle version, you can now, just for a short time, you can actually get the book for 99 cents. So that's about as low as I can do that. Of that, Amazon very generously gives me 32 cents. So it's not the biggest money spinner in the world, but the idea is just to get the book out there and get people reading it. Now, you may not like reading things on Kindle. Remember, if you read it on Kindle, you can read it on your phone, iPad. You don't need to have an actual Kindle. There's an app which you can read it on any device. But you can also get it in physical form. You can get it on audio as well. Now, they, at a regular price for the book and the audio. Although if you get it on audio, often you can get it for a credit on Audible. And if you haven't already used Audible, you can get your first month, I think 2 credits for free. And you can get it on Spotify and other audio platforms too. So you may well be able to get it part of a subscription. So hope that you can get yourself a copy of that. And if you do get a copy, either the Kindle, the audio, or the paperback, then I would really love for you to write a review, just a very quick review on one of those platforms. And that would really help me, because that is what spreads the word. And if I can get some good reviews, then that is what will interest people who don't know me, who know nothing about me, to actually go and read the book. So go and get yourself a copy of Call of the Silver Cockatoo. It's only 99 cents on Kindle. I know you'll resonate with it. If you've got any questions about it, do say. And look, I'd love to hear your feedback. So have a read and then please tell me what you think. So hope you enjoyed the book, and look forward to seeing you either in person or on another one of these videos.